All right, welcome to part 3 of the iThrive marketing series presented by EyeCarePro. I'm Daniel Rosten, CEO of EyeCarePro, and this is proudly supported by iDoc, ClearVision Edge Pro, and EyeCarePro. Okay, so now that everybody knows what kind of marketing they need based on part 1 and how to succeed at social based on part 2, let's take a look into Google. If you want to talk about platforms that dominate, Google is indeed a monster. So here's some stats I'm about to share with you that easily explain how Google can get themselves into antitrust problems if they let their guard down. So, yeah, and you got to remember, folks, Google owns YouTube. So if you do the math here by adding these two together, that's, what is that, over 100 billion visits a year? 100 billion visits a year. Mind you, this information is not that specific as Google does a lot of things, so we don't know what exactly they're coming for. But really, let's focus on Google as a search engine. So, look at the search engine stats. I don't think we need to analyze this graph all that much. The line at the top, the yellow line, that's Google. The other lines are not Google. So as I said in an earlier presentation, we all have limited resources. Yes, there may be some golden nuggets on Bing, but let's get the Bitcoin from Google first. You know what I'm saying? Before we go after the gold in Bing, everybody should focus their attention on Google as a tool to drive traffic. So, let's get started on it. As you know from previous webinars, I like to define what our goal is. Now, SEO stands for search engine optimization, but what is it really? Most people would say that it's it's what you do to show up at the top of Google for searches. I'd say that's not bad, actually. That'll be a 6 or 7 out of 10, but better than the 5 from the last webinar. But here's how I define SEO, keeping your practice goals in mind, of course. Really, SEO is defined as, you can read it here, the activities that create more appointment-producing search engine traffic. Yeah, I know. It's like you'd think I was obsessed by appointments or something. So yes, guilty as charged. And you're not obsessed by appointments? Here's a graph for you. This is a graph that we have at EyeCarePro. It just shows you how obsessed all marketing should be about appointments. This is an internal report we have at EyeCarePro. It dates all the way back to 2016 when we first started measuring all the appointment requests for all of our clients. That year, we tracked 131,560 appointment requests for the year. Last year, we had 835,000, and we're on track to get over just over 1 million this year, 1 million appointment requests for all of our practices that we work with. So, of course, you're going to need the right tools to properly track appointments, which I'll cover that later, but it's all about appointments. So now we're back to the definition of SEO, and we're focused on appointments. So I'll tell you something interesting. Though when you look at this definition, there's a keyword that is not in this definition, which will fundamentally change SEO as you know it. Anybody want to guess what word we do not see in here that we've always seen associated with SEO for as long as we have known SEO? That's right. That's right. Rankings. Now, I'm not playing games with you here. Ever since Google was created, the goal was to rank at the top of Google for all the right keywords for your practice. Optometrist, eye doctor, eye exam, vision therapy, dry eye, myopia management, you name it. Every practice would pay good money to rank at the top of Google for all those keywords. So what's the problem with rankings? Why aren't they in the definition of SEO? And why does it seem like I'm against rankings? Well, listen, the goal of rankings is to get traffic. The goal of traffic is to get appointments. Now, you already know how important I think appointments are. I think that traffic is equally important. No traffic, no appointments. And you'll say to me, okay, yeah, but no rankings, no traffic, no appointments. It's a fair point, but the opposite is not always true. Just because you rank well for something does not mean you will get traffic for it if it's not a popular term. I've spoken to many a practice that focuses on getting good rankings for very, very specific terms. Now, how do you explain this scenario? Practice wants to rank highly for a very specific term. After 4 years, they're barely ranking high for that term, but their website traffic has increased. How? Why? Google has sent them more and more traffic, and they're likely getting more patients from appointments from their site, but they're still not ranking highly for that search term that they so desperately wanted to rank for. Well, the answer is pretty obvious. They're clearly doing well on lots and lots of other terms, and Google is sending them lots and lots of traffic. In fact, Google itself doesn't really care so much about keywords anymore. Yeah. I don't even think I need to ask you this question now, but do you think Google knows that the top 3 things on that list all mean the same thing? And that the bottom 3 also all mean the same thing? Of course, Google knows that. They're Google. They have artificial intelligence that can pretty much speak to a human being. They can read text. The Google algorithm can read text and fully understand what it means and what you're trying to say. If you're trying to rank for a specific term like eye doctor, you'll get plenty of traffic for optometrists at the same time, even though you're not paying attention to it. Same with any of the bottom three. Same with eye doctor near me, or I need an eye exam, and the list goes on. You see, Google's advancement in understanding what it reads has fundamentally changed the way SEO works. This new approach is called semantic search. So what does that really mean? It's kind of a long definition, but it really means that Google knows what you're searching for. And at the same time, it knows what it's reading out there online on all those websites. So it basically knows what results to give you. It knows what you're doing in the search. It knows what the content is, and if it knows what to give back to you. Back in the day, when the best Google could do was match up your search terms with the same exact phrase on the website, then rankings mattered a lot. But now Google knows exactly what you're asking for. You've all seen it. You're going to go do a search on Google and they pretty much fill it in for you. So here's my favorite example of what semantic search actually is. You're welcome to try this out for yourself. So the question that I put into Google was, how old is the small green Jedi guy? Now Google has 9 million results to choose from. But there's the answer. Google not only knew that I was asking about Yoda, but it can tell from the piece of text that it was the answer to my question. So now the next obvious question is, I have no idea. The next search study, I had no idea what BBY was. So I decided, okay, Star Wars, what does BBY mean? My apologies to all you Star Wars fans out there who are insulted by my lack of Star Wars knowledge, but this search engine optimization game has obviously fundamentally changed. Google knows exactly what you're talking about. So really, rankings are now a thing of the past. Well, it's not quite true, but they certainly don't matter as much anymore because they're impossible to track. People have tons of variations on terms. It's impossible to track them all. Let's just put it this way. We own a website called optometrists.org. It has 500 pages. It's basically the Wikipedia of eye care. We have 20,000 different search terms that people have used to get to the site. 20,000. So you know what? You know what Google really wants? It's pretty simple if you think about it. Google wants, here we go, happy users. Happy users means more people using Google to search. The more people that use Google to search, the more Google's going to get in ad revenue, which is targeted to be just under $50 billion this year. Now, the best way Google can ensure happy users is, think about it, by sending them to the website that best matches their search. The best way to do that, thinks Google, is to understand the search to begin with, then understand the site, which means that we're not in the world of rankings anymore. We're now in the world of user experience optimization. Google wants the user to have a great experience because a great experience means they'll love Google and they'll keep coming back. So this new SEO is very, very different from the old SEO. It used to be with the old SEO, we all remember the good old days. Well, you could just stuff keywords into pages and you could play with the title tags and other monkey business like that, and you could rank well on Google. Well, take a look at what the new SEO looks like. I don't see anywhere in here that we can stuff in anything. In fact, I don't even see anything related to keywords in here. This looks to me like the best way to rank well on Google is to build a website that potential patients will really love and they will use and they will tell their friends about and they will tell them about you. So why does that make Google like you, you ask? Well, it's a fair question. In the words of our senior SEO strategist at EyeCarePro, Bernard Pozniak, he says, Google wants to give you traffic. It just wants to make sure that the traffic that it's giving you is going to the right place and users are getting what they want from your site. Google knows when they went to your site. Google knows when the person came back from your site. Google saw them search again. If people come into your site and bounce right back out a second again later, they probably didn't like what they found. So Google knows a lot about what's happening on your website. So we need to embrace the new SEO and jump into some great examples of user experience. So first up, here's a practice that we work with 2 blocks from the White House, it turns out, it seems. Now they have a beautiful website. Washington Eye Doctors. And the website does a great job of communicating value to visitors. You can see right away, they're segmenting their audience, targeting, part of the market segment right there, the second you hit the homepage. Now, in order for your visitors to your site, and remember this statistic here, typically at least 80% of the visitors to your site are new visitors. These people have not been to your site before. So why should they consider your practice for their eye care needs? Think about it. Okay, they look at you, they look at other practices. Why you? So the real answer is credibility, social proof. You basically need to convince somebody looking at your website that you're a great practice. Now, there are many ways to do that, but the best way is to let your patients and your history speak for you, something that people can trust. So this practice here was founded in 1948. You can see that the Laurel there, 1948, you can see testimonials of happy patients, 2 days ago. That's key. The more you can make visitors feel comfortable with your practice, the more credible it will be, the more successful the site will be, and the more usable. That's usability. I mean, it's not going to be translated into more usable, but the happier people will be, the better the user experience. That's one of the main reasons why Washington Eye Doctors gets 10,000 visits a month to their website. Google is sending them a ton of traffic. Do you think they've got the rankings that they need? Sure. Do we know what they are? It doesn't matter. The fact is they're doing well. Google is sending them a lot of traffic. Next up is Lakeline Vision Source, one of our favorite sites and clients. If you want to see a well-run practice, I suggest that you go visit Dr. Sorensen and her team. It's impressive. Now, as for the website, it has to cater to lots of different types of patients because the practice offers such a wide variety of services. Now, one of their keys to usability success, to user experience success, is usefulness. Now, this site is quite useful. Eyewear, order your contacts, log into the patient portal, pay your bill, see your prescription in there, up-to-date blog posts on a variety of topics, information about the equipment you'll find in the practice. That's just some of the useful information and elements of their site, which actually translates into a 5% conversion rate. Now, what's a conversion rate? That's how many people visit the site to request an appointment. That means 1 out of every 20 people that visit the Lakeline site schedule an appointment. So, side question, do you know what your conversion rate is for your site? Okay, sure, some sites might have a higher conversion rate, but when you're getting 5,000 visitors a month to your website, a 5% conversion rate is pretty good. Do the math. Google loves that statistics. Next up is, let's switch to the next slide here. Next up is Dr. Gonzalez and Eyepieces Dallas. Now, Dr. Gonzalez indeed runs a practice that provides unique eyewear in Dallas. That means he's not looking for tons of traffic from Google. It's not going to help him. He's looking for the right traffic from Google. That's specifically looking for unique high-end eyewear. Of course, the site is full of great content and a great user experience, all specifically targeted towards high-end unique eyewear. And the end result, I'm not going to say that the site ranks highly on Google, but I'm going to say that what is more important to Dr. Gonzalez is that they had 513 visitors to their site from Dallas. Now, what makes that impressive is that those visitors had a 39% bounce rate. Now, bounce rate is, if you throw a ball at something and it bounces out, it just went in and out. So a bounce rate of 39% means 39% of the people that came into the site left right away. Now, that's not all bad. It doesn't mean those 39% didn't find what they wanted. Often somebody will come in, find the address, find the phone number, find exactly what they need, and they're done. So the average of the traffic that came from Dallas was over 2 minutes on the site. Now, considering that 39% only looked at one page, the other 60% are staying for well over 3 minutes on the site. So Google sees those signals and is happy to keep sending them traffic from Dallas. Now, next up is TSO Gateway, Texas State Optical. Now, here's a group that's doing it right. When you look at this homepage, it looks deceptively simple. It's not. Our team has tested many variations of similar designs and optimized the heck out of what you see here. And each piece of the page is carefully designed to be usable. You've got yourself the COVID message, and there are actual appointments available right now. Meet our doctors, see the insurances we accept, maximize your benefits, COVID friendly. Click on any one of those and you're off. Now, that's more usability of the full than most sites have anywhere. You combine that with a lot of Google ads, which feeds SEO, by the way, because Google ads teach Google what visitors like about the site. And the result is over 700 calls to the practice a month from the website. And Google My Business. So that's another signal that Google picks up on. And of course, the site gets more traffic. Next up, we have Blacksburg Eye Associates. Now, we mustn't forget that many practices have advanced specialty services out there. Patients in need of those services often have a steep learning curve, as I've mentioned so far, a steep learning curve ahead of them to make an effective decision on how and where to get treated. That's why Blacksburg Eye Associates focuses a lot of their site on providing valuable content to its visitors, content that you won't find on most other sites, not just a little bit, lots of valuable content. Yes, okay, we write the content for the practice because they don't have time, but Google loves the content, which is why they had over 1,205 visitors from Google searches alone last month. So you can see content is still king. Now, next up, we have Fusion Eye Care. Now, Fusion Eye Care, as you can see, has a lot of form fills filled in, but let's not confuse into thinking that everything that we're doing is just for the website. Trust me, if the practice can't live up to what the website needs are, then eventually it's all going to fall apart. If the patient experience isn't that good, it's not going to work. The credibility will disappear. If you take a look at this site, it looks great. And the practice has to perform just as well as the site looks. If the blogs aren't updated, the equipment is a bit old, there's not enough new content coming into the site, the practice is not giving their marketing the attention it deserves, the SEO will not work. So with this practice, they talk the talk and they walk the walk. You want a website that looks great? Here it is. People look at it and they say, wow. And when the website is busy showing off how great the practice actually looks, visitors know exactly what they're in for if they come into the office. Now, this practice made a great move and they added their patient forms to the website. That's the number you see here. That's not too special, but they really used them to drive over 1,300 people to the form page last month, which is a ton of traffic. And it's a great signal to Google because when you combine that with a great looking website, people are spending a lot of time filling in the form online. So it's no surprise that this website does very well. Now, I think I'm starting to make my point here, but to quote Bernard again, not only do users have to have a great experience on your site, but let's switch focuses here. Google also has to have a great experience on your site. Remember I said that Google has to understand your site quite well? Well, if the visitor does, but Google doesn't, it's a bit of a problem. So when those Google bots come crawling, they better like what they see. And they don't see what people see. Google has a bunch of assessment tools that it shares online. And one of them is called Lighthouse. You can find it under more tools, developer tools in Chrome. It's buried in there. But if you run a Lighthouse report on your website, I'll tell you a lot about, it will tell you a lot about how Google sees your site. Now, one of the last usability features of the site is actually accessibility, which Google can actually assess all by itself. The human being, it can do it all by itself. So here's an example. Nobody's perfect, as you can see by our numbers here, but Google also throws in SEO analysis while they're at it. I love Lakeside Vision in Plano because this was actually the first optometry practice that signed up for our search engine optimization services back in 2007. That's 14 years ago. Actually, back then I ran the service myself, and I'm not ashamed to say I stuffed those keywords in there, those meta tags, like the best of them, and I got Dr. Moon's site to the top of Google in no time, but those were the days. Anyhow, yes, your site must be accessible, and Google gives you the tools to measure it. But on top of all that, this is a mobile first score from Lighthouse. Google also cares how your website looks on mobile. In fact, and Google's got a tool at developers.google.com, Page speed is the tool. They have a website that tests for that page speed. Page speed is very connected to mobile first because the faster it is, the better it's going to be on mobile. And of course, it has to look good on mobile. So I ran Lakeside Vision on it. And as you can see, thumbs up, 85, not bad. But there, Premier Eye Center, 97. So it's possible to do very well for mobile first speed. Now, these are the kind of things that Google sees under the hood. Now, what else does Google see under the hood? Oh, by the way, if you take a look at the actual performance of the page speed, Google actually gives you suggestions on what you can do to improve your page speed. And this is a funny suggestion. Google suggests that you serve images in the next generation formats. Now, what is the next generation format of images? It's a new format that Google came up with, which doesn't work on iOS. So, I can see why Google wants you to push you into it, but it doesn't work on iOS. You're going to miss out on a lot of people not seeing your images if you move to the next generation format. So we're not going to get that site ranking at 100 because we're going to have images on there that are, friendly for iOS. So interesting, just for you to know. Here's the last part of the presentation that you might just throw up your hands in despair at this point. Any structured information that Google needs to know about a website can now be delivered via JSON, not JSON, JSON, JSON. It's using the schema.org data structure. So this is a lot of gobbledygook for most, but it helps if you're a programmer. This code actually tells Google about the practice. If you look carefully in here, you will see the practice address, the details, the contacts, the price range, you name it. There's plenty more you can tell Google this way. It's kind of like a data IV stuck straight into Google. Hey, like I said, also, Google also has to have a great experience on your website, and this is the way that you give Google that. So I think I've thrown enough at you today to make your head spin a little bit. So maybe we should quit while we're ahead, but it would be fair to say that SEO ain't what it used to be anymore, Toto. Now that Google can truly understand what it reads and what people are searching for, we're in a new world of SEO, where the real goal is to provide website visitors with a great experience. That means you need to focus a lot on all aspects of usability. Now, we went through lots of examples today, and you have to make sure that Google finds your site usable as well, not just the visitor, but Google has to, which means your site needs to be mobile friendly. It needs to be fast. It needs to have structured data on there. It's all one big package. By the way, if anybody out there is growing and buying more locations or opening more locations, I'm going to give you a good piece of advice now, since you made it to this part of the webinar. Don't get one site and list all your locations on one site. If you do, guess what's going to happen? Practices in each of your areas that do any kind of SEO on their individual site will always make Google happier than your one site will, which represents lots of locations. The more traffic will come to them. They'll get more traffic than you will, not your site. How can one website with 10, 20, 30 locations listed possibly make more users as happy as one local site that speaks directly to one user's needs, which is in that area? So I'll leave you with one final thought, which is SEO needs constant work. There's no set it and forget it. Now think of the compound effect here. You've got to keep improving every aspect of your site, your content, your online presence. You do that and it will keep adding up. If you need any help, obviously, let me know. So up next in this series, Google My Business, or shall we say Google is taking my business. Google actually controls the traffic to your website. This is not a conspiracy theory. Forget SEO. Find out the scary stats about how Google My Business and how your practice is finished without Google My Business. Otherwise, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll